Jai. Isi Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Vibhavamo to the Bhakti Jai. Bhakti-Vrinda Ki Jai. Both three. Move closer. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Yena Tasmai Shri Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Swami Shri Bhakti Vedanta Prabhupada Te Guravagyam Shirasi Pritpa Shakyadesha Swarupine Hare Krishna Mantrena Sachadrabhastarine Vishwacharya Prabhaya Divya Murtaye Shri Bhagavat Madhurya Gita Jnana Pradayane Gaura Shri Rupa Siddhanta Saraswati Nishevine Radha Krishna Paramboja Vindaya Gurave Namah Devam Divyatanum Sujanda Vanam Balarka Chayam Shitam Sandrananda Puram Sarega Vayanam Vairagya Jantam Shri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Varanam Vande Tam Shubham Vaira Sharanam Yasishwaram Shri Haram Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Saurito Gauranaye Pushpabandho Kishro Sandho Tomo Vandeham Siram Vishnu Abhaya Charana Sako Sukhado Paramanando Sundaro Subhalapriyo Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavando Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radharata Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krishna Devi Pranamami Hari Shri Guru Vaishnava Paraki Jai Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Vibhavamo to the Bhakti Ki Jai Shri Nando to the Jai Lord the Vrinda Ki Jai Lord Premana. So good morning everyone. Today we celebrate the appearance of Srila Prabhupada, who did such groundbreaking work for our lineage, make these teachings of Chaitanya Vaishnavism available to the world beyond the borders of India, and in many respects within India also. The teachings to many people. Paschatya Prachat Karine. Today's also what's called the Nandotsav, or the festival of Nanda Maharaj. As we heard last night, Nanda Maharaj was the middle son of Parjanya and the king of the cowherds. And we talked a little bit with limited time that was available about the birth of Krishna in Vrindavan. I thought we should do a little more justice to that. And this morning, this was the day then after the midnight appearance of Krishna, where it could actually be celebrated in the Braj. Not that everybody was up at midnight and knowing that Yashoda would suddenly go into labor and so forth. Nanda Maharaj was in the cowshed when a nursemaid came bearing fruits and flowers. It was kind of a symbolic sign language way of saying, son has been born. He saw her and saw her, the bouquet and the fruits in her hand, and the joy himself, Nanda Maharaj, became joyful. Because that was the only anxiety, the only problem in the entirety of the Braj community, pastoral community of Krishna's family and friends. But was that Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda did not have any issue, and who will be the successor? Not only that, but family life is often very much and more so perhaps in the past, even about having children. So everybody in the Braj had children, but the king and queen didn't have any children. And as I mentioned, there was a problem every time they thought to conceive, and they became discouraged from it by their what came to their mind. Each Nanda and Yashoda, the mother and father of Krishna, thought independently of one another without sharing notes. When they thought of conceiving, in their mind came the vision of a child who would be more charming than Narayan. Narayan is God. Narayan has, he's the God of awe and reverence. He has 4 arms. It's just like when your mother says, and you're a young girl pulling on her sari, her dress, I want this, I want that. She's washing the dishes and says, what do you think, I have 4 arms? Something. You have to wait. So, so who has 4 arms? God. You can imagine if a 4 arms and you're a beautiful person walking, how we would respond with some awe and reverence. We might not feel that we could get too close, but can be inspired in some way. So in the Braj, in Vrindavan, they all worship Narayan. They're very religious people. It's a beautiful thing about the pastoral Leela of Krishna. As Krishna is understood to be Swayam Bhagavan, the fountainhead of all avatars and all expansions of the Godhead that expand for the purpose of responding to the love of his devotees, which is varied. So the varied sentiments of love, like we've spoken about, there's love in servitude, love in fraternity, love, parental love, and romantic love, for example. And within this, there are so many variations, nuances as well. They're within, for example, servitude. There is the servitude of the Braj, is a certain type of servitude. It's very different than the servitude or dasya in Vaikuntha. There in the Braj, the servants are servants in the context of the Leela, because Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda are the king and queen of Vrindavan, so they have some house servants and assistants and so forth. So this is their kind of life, if you will, and their servitude is tinged with friendship. As Brahma said, Aho bhagyam, Nanda go prabhajoksham, yan mitram paramanandam, puna brahma sanatanam. This comes in a very important part of the Bhagavatam, Brahma's prayers. The whole Siddhanta of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is found there. That's in the Sakyarasa center of the Bhagavatam. And he says, oh, this place is so incredible. What he saw, Aho bhagyam, how lucky are the people of Nanda Maharaj. Because he who is Purna Brahma, Sanatanam, the full face of Brahman, the eternal Godhead, is appearing here, Yan Mitram Paramanam, as their friend. So friendship is the kind of what pervades the whole the Braj Leela, in that, for example, as I say, the dasya or servitude there is tinged with friendship. Within the friendship, there are 4 different types of friendship. There's the friendship of friends who are a little younger. There are friends who are a little older. So older friends relate with younger friends differently than younger friends relate with friends who are older than them. So there's Sakya, Surit Sakya, Priya Sakya, Priyanarma Sakya. They are the most intimate friends of Krishna in terms of pure fraternal love. We're equal in all respects with him. And there are those Priyanarma Sakyas who are friends of Krishna, but they are involved in his romantic affairs. Normally, friends are not involved in their friends' romantic affairs unless they're very confidential friends who give them solace when things aren't working out and so forth. So Krishna has certain friends like this. So the Sakya Rasa extends from servitude all the way through Madhurya in some respects. So it pervades the whole land, if you will. And then, of course, there's the Madhurya, the romantic love itself, that the Leela is centered on. So as I said the other night, Krishna has 3 identities. He's the son of Nanda and Yashoda. This is a Vatsalya identity. He's the coward boy, and he has friends. And he's the lover of Radha. So, different types of sentiments. If we move from the Braj Leela, from rural district, go across the Jamuna to the metropolitan area of the Braj Mandal, where Krishna was born in the prison house last night, as we heard. There we find what? We find the the parental love of his father and mother is tinged with some sense that he's God. He, after all, he appeared there with 4 arms, fully helmeted and armored and whatever, ornamented and so forth. So it's not very human-like. And then you study the Bhagavad, you see they started offering prayers to him and so on and so forth. So they have parental love, but their parental love is weaker in this sense that when the godhood of Krishna expresses itself, because he does something extraordinary, their parental love recedes to the background, and the fact that he's God comes to the foreground, and so they step back and they have some measure of reverence in their love. And in Mathura, sometimes Krishna shows himself as 2-handed, sometimes as 4-handed. And if you go from Mathura to Dwarka, the other holy city in the Golok, the Aishwarya, or the majesty of the God is further manifest. So even within Krishna Lok, if you will, we have some pure keval, pure prem, and not mixed with any sweet, Madhurya in that sense, sweet, not mixed with any majesty. And we have regions where there is some measure of majesty and where the majesty may take precedence. And so there are different types of devotees and different approaches to the Absolute. And he has different faces, therefore, that he responds to their approach in love. So the many faces of Krishna, who is the source of all these different faces. Like one candle lights many candles. They all give light. They're all important. Still they have an origin. And all of them are partial manifestations of himself. So in the Braj Leela, he is called Swayam Bhagavan here, in the full sense of the term. I mentioned that the term Leela, the word Leela, which means to play, really, is not really used in whole sections of the Bhagavatam describing the metropolitan life of Krishna, his princely life. And it's used maybe to say that in a slightly, when he did it in a playful way, he did something else, like establish Dharma, defeated a demon, or something like that. But in Vrindavan, then this term fully applies. There he's only playing. And so, in the Braj, again, Krishna's born at midnight. Most everyone is asleep. Nanda is notified in the morning. He becomes joyful, and the only anxiety in the whole of the Braj is brought to an end. That anxiety being what Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda, they don't have a son. This is how they're thinking. Every time, as I said, they thought of having a son, this vision came in their minds of a son more charming than Narayan. The beauty of the Vrindavan, as I'm explaining in one sense, is that just as every form of the Godhead is within Krishna, every aspect of religious life and spiritual life can be found there as well and more. Let's take, for example, the idea of the Varnashram Dharma, the socio-religious model of the Vedic culture. While Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and I mentioned this I think last night, in the Bhagavatam, it makes a very strong stand on its emphasis on the pursuit of that which transcends the moral life altogether. This prema dharma, not ordinary religious dharma. As I said, the Bhagavatam begins where the Gita leaves off, and Gita says, Sarva dharma prityaja. Give up dharma. Give up the moral life and the pursuit of things, asking God for things. That's not a good thing. It's not very bright. You're not a thing. So to ask for things is he's like, what? Okay, if you want, you can have things. So you have to give that up and just take shelter of me, do bhakti to me. So the Bhagavatam picks up on that. Dharma projita kaita gotra, that's how it begins. Saint says same thing. This book is not about dharma that cheats the self out of its prospect. It gives it things. Dharma projita, sarva dharma prityaja, projita prityaja. Same implication is there. Not only give up religion, but to give up the desire for mukti. Religion is a pious way to acquire things, and mukti is a way to get away from things. When you realize that things are the problem. I wanted things, I got them, and they broke. I wanted things, I got them, and I'm broke. And I still owe for them. And they're not doing anything for me anymore. I wanted Prince Charming, and he turned into a couch potato. Just like that, or worse. So there's a group that wants things, and then there's a group that is wise, wants to get away from things and realize I'm not a thing. When I was a young man, 20 years old or so, I used to live in Santa Cruz Mountains and Boulder Creek. And I used to sit and think, what will I do with myself? What will I become? What will I be? And I kept thinking about all these things that I could be and do and so forth. And none of them really, they seemed to have a life that was not enduring, and so I was not satisfied. And so I began to think, who's thinking about being something? Who's thinking about being something? Why be a thing? Be anything. What's thinking about being a thing that's more than a thing itself? So I became interested in that. Well, who is that? What is that? What is the experiencer? Things are not experiential in and of himself. Matter is a non-experiential reality. I'm a unit of experiential reality. So what will non-experiencing stuff do for me? I must be different. So, and pursuit of spiritual life, and of course I was fortunate to come in touch with Prabhupada Vishnupad, Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, whose day of appearance is today as well. I'm going to talk about that. So, in the Gita, Krishna says, give up dharma and give up this desire for things, and give up the desire also for getting away from things only, and just being. If I can't have it, I won't do anything. It's something like that. It's the difference between karma and gyan. In karma, we want things. If we become wise, gyan means knowledge, then we think things are a problem. So, okay, I can't have them. It's a problem if I have them. My attachment to them is the womb from which suffering is born. So I don't want anything. I won't do anything. I'll stand in the corner. Something like that. I will do nothing. But the dharma, the soul has a dharma. Jaiva dharma. What is the natural position of the Atma? It's a dependent entity. So it has a master, so to speak. It has a source. It has a relationship. And so it has something to do. It has to be at least grateful. It's a dependent entity. Gratefulness is kind of thankfulness, is the gratitude is kind of the beginning of love, if you will. So it has a capacity to love. And love, if you said, as I said last night, if you love someone, then you want to serve them. So this is what the Bhagavatam is about. So the Gita is ultimately about. And the Gita, I look at the Bhagavatam as the theological sequel to the Gita. And there the whole life of Krishna is depicted and displayed and so forth. And in such a way, in the Bhagavatam, this is his excellence, in such a way that the sentiments that govern the Leela are showcased in such a way that they have potential capacity to attract us, draw us in, and give us a samskara for Madhurya Bhakti, romantic Bhakti, fraternal Bhakti, paternal Bhakti, and so on and so forth. This is what the book is about. Nigamukalpataro Ralitam Palam Sukamubadam Dadrava Sammutam Pivata Bhagavatam Rasam Malayam Rasikabubi Bhavaka. It's for Bhavakas, Rasikas. And we're encouraged in the book at the onset to take the fruit, Nigama Kalpataro Ralitam Phalam, from the Nigama Kalpataro, the tree of the Veda, many branched, full of knowledge. To take the fruit, the ripened fruit, Nigama Kalpataro Galitam Phalam, the ripe fruit, it falls, Phalam, Galitam. When it falls on the ground, it's easy to go and pick up. Makes it very easy, and you don't have to climb so many branches, and you might fall off yourself. You can pick it up right at the base of the tree, and it's so ripe. Nigama Kalpataro Galitam Phalam. Book is describing itself. It is like a ripened fruit of the Vedic tree of wisdom. And it's dropped right there. It's just been handed down. Sukadeva just took it from Vyasa, just like this, very gently passed it on to us. And so what should we do with that? Bhagavatam says, we should drink that fruit. It has no bit, it has no rind. It's just pure juice, rasa. Just drink it, and what will happen? Amrita Drava Samritam Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. You will drink that rasam and you will alayam. You will pass out. And what to do when you get up? Drink it again. Something like that. So you can live on this. As we heard the Raj preacher was living on the top of the kata, Hari Kata of Sukadeva. So So while this is what the Bhagavad is about, and it's exemplified in the lives of the inhabitants of Krishna's pastoral Leela, the fact that this is the pinnacle kind of idea of, as we see it, of transcendental penetration or entrance into transcendence. You can go to like the basic level and you can leave material existence and enter into Brahman and be peaceful and be, and love to be, love to exist, because your existence is no longer under the threat that we feel it is now, which makes us have to get busy and get to work and make our relationships work and whatever. It's a lot of work. So you can end all of that. You can end all of that in Brahman. Peaceful, but as I said, we want peace and love. So, and love requires some movement, transcendental love, some variety. So, further than transcendence, we have to move, and the measure will be by affection, and which affords us some sense of intimacy with the object of our source. So Vrindavan, we find this full measure of love, that is such that the sense that Krishna is God has no bearing on them. Even if Krishna should do something extraordinary, it's like, let's say you're a mother and your son becomes the president and he's making his announcement. I want to thank everybody. I won the election. I want to thank my mother. She runs out on the stage and says, "Oh, dear." She hugs him like that. He's going, "Mom, I'm the president. I'm happy that you're the president, but you're my son." This is what's the main thing. That's just some people say that, yeah, you're the president. But, you still have to eat breakfast in the morning. Nothing's changed, has it? Something like that. So this is how they feel in Vrindavan. They hear he's God. People say he's God. Maybe he is, but whatever. That's cool. Okay, my friend is God. Sorry. But that's some secondary thing. It never gets in the way, and it causes them to step back and their parental or friendly or romantic love recede in the background. So the full face of intimacy is afforded there. And as he is Swami Bhagavan and all faces of divinity are within him, all the religious conceptions are there. So you take the Dharma, which Krishna said should be given up, transcend the moral life, and enter into spiritual, experiential life. You'll be a moral person too. It's like morality plus, so to speak. It's not an advocacy of immorality, but in the Braj, what do we find? In the Leela itself, we find the Varnashram. They're Brahmins, and the people there, and the community is agricultural, so they're Vaishyas. They take care of cows, and grow, and they do some trade and so forth. And this is a shape, if you will, a structure to the Leela. It's superficial. We don't think that by importing the structure here, that we will have manifested Vrindavan on earth. We need to import the substance, the essence, more than the form. So this is important because people tend to try to want to import the form rather than the substance. If the form, for example, of Varnashram, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this has to be transcended. So Varnashram is fully operative there. They're morally right people. Vaidhi Bhakti, where we worship God with awe and reverence, is there. Their deity is Narayan. In the house of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, they have the shalagram of Narasimha, the god of Prahlad. They faithfully worship him. He's a protective type form of Narayan. Very big story of him, how he protected this young boy, Prahlad. So actually they have him, and they want ultimately that their son will be protected. So they worship. So the Vaidhi Bhakti is there. They're very good devotees, religious people, and Vaishnavas, and so forth. As I said, they worship Narayan, they do the arti, and Narayan, they'll bring in Madhu Mangal, the Brahmin boy, friend of Krishna, do the arti. They're watching the arti, but their mind is somewhere else. It's like you do arti, and sometimes your mind is somewhere else. That's not good. But there in Vrindavan, it's good because their mind is only on Krishna. They're worshiping Narayan, their mind is on Krishna. And the Leela is that Narayan is God, Krishna is just our son. And the fact that he's God, as I said, this is like not really part of the picture. And so here's the setting, and Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, they want a son. Every time they think of conceiving, they get this picture in their mind of a son who would be more charming than Narayan. Kind of like Narayan, but there's something more to him. And of course, in Krishna, there's something more than in his Narayan form. In Krishna, there is the prospect of loving in intimacy, like you cannot with Narayan. And so when this picture comes in their minds, they think, what am I, crazy? I want a son. I get this picture. He's more charming than Narayan. I mean, that's just crazy. And how could your, son be more charming than God? And so then they think, they lose the impetus, the creative impetus, if you will. And of course, then eventually they share notes and they think, wow, you're thinking the same way. What to do? I get the same vision. And I think I must be crazy. I'm not going to tell my husband, not tonight. Sorry. It's something like that. With regard to the romantic leelas of Krishna, I should mention, one time a fellow asked me, he said, Swami, is there any, real sex in Vrindavan, in the spiritual world? I said, no, you don't understand. There's no real sex here. So, eventually, when they compare notes, they decide, well, let's take it to Narayan, and we'll have a vow for a year long, and we worship Narayan and let him resolve the situation. So they're a very nice worship to Shalagram, Nishinga, Narayan is form of Narayan, and after some time, then he appears in their dreams and tells them, yes, I'm coming in this form, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, in the village, who don't know about this, people also have this kind of slow burn of anxiety. The king doesn't have a son, queen doesn't have a son, or an issue. And so Purnamasi, mystic lady, appears on the scene, Madhu Mangal. Who are you? They explain. She says, me and Madhu Mangal, he's a student of Narada. He always stays the same age, and so do I, and I know the future, and so forth. I've been schooled in mysticism and so forth. So all the superstitious village people gather around her, and they say, well, we want you to stay in our community. Let us give you a house along the banks of the Krishna. Krishna is another name for the Jamuna, because the Jamuna is dark. Her waters are dark, and Krishna means dark or blackish. It's thought to be the perspiration of Krishna in ecstasy. Something like that. It's a world of poetic ecstasy. So she says, very good. I would take a house on the bank of the Krishna. You've spoken, the Veda has come from your lips. And I have something to tell you about the future. And so they gather up. What is that? The Nanda Maharaj will have a son. And he will be named Krishna. Something like that. So the whole community is excited about this. Meanwhile, in the metropolitan area, as I said, Devaki and Vasudeva are in prison, and all their children are being killed and so forth. In the Brajas, there's no problems. There's no problems there whatsoever. There's no dharma to be established. After Krishna appears, then Kams sent some henchmen to try to deal with him, and the Vishnu inside of Krishna very deftly deals with them. No problem. And he just goes on with his play with his friends in the forest and so forth, effortlessly. So, as the months pass, well, I said Krishna is born in the metropolitan area and the rural area, both. And one is the avatar, and respectively, and the avatari, the metropolitan area, the avatar, and avatari means the source of the avatar. Avatari in the rural area. So we heard Krishna was born in the prison house. How did he get out? Well, this Yogamaya, this spiritual potency, caused all the guards to go to sleep. Chains, Devaki or Ananda Maharaj were loosened, and he took the child out and crossed the river Jamuna, went to his half-brother's house, king of the cowherds, and saw there that this is after the childbirth, that there was a daughter. So he exchanged the son for the daughter and brought the daughter back to the metropolitan area. I should mention that Yashoda, when she had her vision after being told by Narayan, you'll get pregnant now and you'll have a son. She had this vision of a son that was kind of like, had like a shadow of a lady that was a girl. It was like following him everywhere. We heard that when Brahma went to the ocean of milk, the Vishnu communicated, I'm coming, and my yoga maya will come also, by which many mystical things will take place under her influence and so forth. This is the yoga maya. Like the shadow, wherever Krishna goes, she's following like a shadow and anticipating in advance what he wants and making the arrangement. This is the Swarup Shakti. Bhakti is constituted of a particular combination of that sort of elements of the Swarup Shakti. It facilitates the desires of Bhagavan. So, Vasudeva saw the daughter there. But when Krishna was born to Yashoda, she was told she had a son. After all, the nursemaid went to the cow pen with the flowers and the fruits and told Nanda Maharaj, the son has been born. So she was there the night she saw a son. And she was there for the birth. Right? So the idea is what? That Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, Vibhuj Krishna, two-armed form, human-like Krishna, appeared from Yashoda. And she passed out after taking a look at him and nursing him for a moment, passed out and so forth. Nursemaid took care of everything, and the daughter came out like a twin. When Vasudeva came, he saw the daughter, exchanged the son for the daughter, and the four-armed form of Krishna, who had taken a two-armed form in order to disguise himself, so to speak, in the metropolitan area. That form merged back into the original avatari form. He's the avatar. So the avatar merged back into the avatari, which is his source. And the girl was taken to the prison house and so forth. And then she did her thing and caused Kamsa a lot of grief and so forth. That's another part of the story. So Krishna is born this way in Vrindavan, and the celebration for that we celebrated the midnight appearance of Krishna. Krishna is famous for this. Devaki Putra, the son of Devaki. Yashoda means Yashoda. Yasho means fame. Da means to give. So who gives fame? Fame, I should say. Yasho means fame. Who gives fame? So what? Krishna is famous as the son of Devaki. The world over. And everyone's celebrating. Oh, he's born in the prison house. Son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Actually, the son of Yashoda in the full sense of the term. But she, Yashoda, she gave the fame to Devaki. So you'd be known as the mother and all over the world. And I'll have him as my son, actually. So he grew up there in the Braj, of course. And when he was about 10, 11 years old, he went back to the metropolitan area and he dealt with Kamsa and reunited with Devaki and Vasudeva particularly, and so on and so forth. So this is the secret, the secrets. I said, Mathura Sanihito Hari, that Krishna, Hari, the name for Krishna, is always in Mathura. Sanihito, it means he's always present. But it also means it means hidden, present and hidden. He's present. He's present in Mathura. He's known for that. He overtly appears there, but in a more private and secret and hidden way, he appears in the Braj. And he hides there also. He's been hiding there from Kamsa and his wrath and so forth, who goes after looking for the eighth child, and so on and so forth. So these secrets of the Bhagavatam are brought out by our acharyas, our Gaudiya acharyas. Their books are extensive. They are the original founding acharyas of our sampradaya. We call them the Shastra Gurus, Rup, Sanatan, Jiva Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, these 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, commissioned by, they were empowered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to craft, if you will, a canon of Bhakti Shastras from the greater body of scriptural texts that are honored in all different lineages. They drew from them essence and brought out books like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bhagavatamrita, Krishna Vamanamrita, Krishna Lilamrita. So these are all extensions of the ideas, the feelings of the Bhagavatam, and further showcasing them, that people might become affected, touched by these, by this Vrindavan Leela, and develop then a bhakti samskar, impressions that go into the chitta, unknown to us, and affect us and develop within us a tendency, a propensity towards bhakti, that eventually will accumulate in such a way that our bhakti will be natural and taste-driven rather than head-driven, heart-driven entirely. Very nice idea. So they have done this. They have brought out this idea: who is Krishna? What is the Vrindavan Leela? You read the Bhagavatam, you'll never get this. Krishna is born. Somehow he seems to be transferred to Vrindavan, then he goes to Mathura, and he never comes back to Vrindavan, and so forth. Leela ends in Dwarka. The Goswamis read the Bhagavatam and they said, can't end like this, it's not possible. How can it end in Dwarka? Well, that's what the book says, it ends right here. They said, it's good, you have to read it more closely. Can't say. Why can't it say that? But they have a very obvious answer, because look at the love of Vrindavan. We don't even think he ever left. What do you mean he's in Dwarka? They say he may be physically, quote unquote, in Dwarka, but in his physical apparent absence in Vrindavan, he's more present there than he is in his physical presence in Dwarka. How is that? Because of the measure of the love for him. He leaves at 11 years old, appears to never come back. What happened to all the people in the Braj? What happened to them? What happened to the gopis? To Radha, Krishna's coward friends, Nanda, Yashoda? What was the measure of their separation? Properly understood, all these Mathura Leela, the Dwarka Leela, all reflecting back on the glory, the virtues of the Vrindavan Leela. So they read the text very carefully. They said, see here, this word says this. Take it like this, it means like this, it shows. Here he went back. At the end, after getting down to Vakra, he was in Mathura. Certainly he crossed the river. How could he not? And then the Leela winds up there and it starts over again. It's something like this. Now in Yashoda, Krishna goes away, and they think, how can we go on? Krishna's gone, and the whole of the Vrindavan is merged in this separation, and Nanda Maharaj is thinking that we're so unfortunate. Uddhava comes and brings a message that you shouldn't lament. After all, your son is in Mathura, it's true, but he's God. Your son is God. So he's trying to solace them. And they said, well, great. Great, our son is God. That makes it even worse, doesn't it? And he's gone. We can't see, hear about him. There's no internet. There's no email. What to do? There's no Facebook there. So and Buddha was just like, what are these people? What kind of love they have? And he talks with gopis, Krishna's friends, and so forth. So this love goes on like this in Krishna's absence. It works something like this. Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, they start thinking, oh, we're so unfortunate. We have a son, but we can't even keep in touch with him. We hear news every now and then. And we're so unfortunate. Yashoda goes into a catatonic state practically. And their thinking is that we're so unfortunate. We have a son, but he's not here. We have a son, but he's not here. Do we have a son? Really? Maybe, we had this thought. I remember that, we wanted a son more beautiful than Orion. We thought that was crazy. We had a dream that he was going to come. Maybe he never came. Maybe we're just making this all up. Look at us. Do we have a son? Let's have a son. We should have a son. And then the whole Leela starts over again. It goes around like this in a circle. It starts again. So these are the penetrating insights of our acharyas, and they have a very significant literary contribution. And I'll speak a little bit about my Guru Maharaj, Bhakti-yoga Swami Prabhupada's literary legacy is considerable as well. And he's following in the line of these Goswamis, who are the founding acharyas of the Sampradaya, whose books interpret the greater body of the sacred texts into what becomes our, philosophically speaking, theologically speaking, the tenets, the groundwork, the foundation of our lineage. And so my Guru Maharaj follows in the wake of that. So he wrote books. A lot of them are commentaries, of course, like the Goswamis made on the Bhagavatam. He has a commentary on the Bhagavatam, commentary on the Gita, and so forth. It was quite prolific in this regard, and following very carefully in the line of the tradition, speaking about it in a contemporary way in his times, bringing it to beyond the borders of India, and so forth. He was very preoccupied, I should say, with the idea of making a literary contribution. His Guru Maharaj, Om Vishnu Pada Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, told him, if you ever get money, print books. So he took what few words of advice he got from his guru, very seriously, made a life out of them. He wrote to his Guru Maharaj about 2 weeks, as it turned out, before he passed from the world. Said, Guru Maharaj, if I could give you any service. Bhaktisiddhanta wrote back and said, I think it would be good if you tried to speak about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in English. So he used to say, my Guru Maharaj ordered me to speak in English about Krishna. Just a suggestion. That's how he took it, and he made his life like this. Whenever he was praised, and I said, my Guru Maharaj ordered me, I'm doing this, therefore the success is coming because of that, because I followed his mandate. The story of him trying to in India, speaking in English. So there he is, he's speaking in English. This is a time just after India achieved independence. So everybody was preoccupied with politics, and the new nation and the tea shops, all the men were there. And talking politics. And Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan and printing his Back to Godhead magazine, cloth like this. You wash it at night and hang it up and be clean and you wear it in the morning. He had a little money, could have spent got a second piece of cloth, but he wanted to print a magazine. He called it Back to God. The world has to go back to God. It was just, again, during during in and about, World War II. So the world was at war, so we have to go back to God. Values about spiritual values and so forth, not nationalism. That is an extension of I am this body. So this is a problem. So he started his magazine, Back to Godhead, and he used to take a train to Delhi, and then he got a printer. You can imagine, he got a printer to print it on credit. Here's a guy who's got like one outfit, no money, and he said, "I'll pay you later." So how his sense of urgency, and purpose and such was compelling. The printer knew, I'm never going to get paid for this, or it's not a good credit risk, but I can't turn them down. So he printed it, and then probably go to the tea shops, try to talk to everybody interested in politics about Back to God, and give them the magazine. And you find Jehovah's Witnesses tracts, those little pamphlets they hand out. So when you look at that, that's how they're thinking in America. Okay, that's how they think over there. All right, so then you think like that, how to frame his presentation. Some people of the sadhus were living in Vrindavan. He was elderly. By the time he came to America, he was like 7 years old, so he was elderly. They were preoccupied with reading the Govinda Lilamrita, Krishna Balanamrita, all the rasic books and so forth, and focusing on the Leelas and trying to meditate on them and so forth. And Prabhupada's reading Christian tracts, and he wants to go to America. And so if a man or a young boy or anybody in India knows someone who want to go to America, it's for sure, they think the streets are paved with gold in America, it's land of profit, that must be Swarga. It's in our books, heaven there. So they want to go there for that reason. Prabhupada's trying to get a passport, trying to get a visa, reading these Christian tracts. But if you look carefully at him, you see his only thought is to distribute the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that in that interest in sharing that, and the compassion behind that, and the life that went along with that of austerity and sacrifice and so forth, is extraordinary. He did manage to come to America. He got the passage on a freighter, not a luxury liner, because he asked the ship liner, who owned the shipping company, for passage. She said, "No, Sadhu, you're too old. You should stay in Vrindavan." And that's what sadhus do. They go there and meditate on Krishna and then leave the world there. You're too old. You can't go to America in this condition. It's cold over there and so forth. So he just sat on her property and chanted japa. She looked up. She's still out there. He's still out there. Next morning, still out there. So he was determined, and this is how he showed his determination. So she said, "All right, you want to go? Go." So she gave him the ticket, he got a visa, and so forth. And he came to America. He got off the boat with a trunk full of books. That's what he brought. He had 3 volumes now of the Bhagavatam printed, of his commentary. And he packed it with so much because he thought, I don't know if I'm lived long enough to complete the text. So his purport, his commentary is extensive in the first canto. And he arrived in the Boston Harbor, and he said that he didn't know whether to turn left or right. He turned left and went to New York, just down. And there he was living as a homeless person in the Bowery. Meanwhile, sadhus in Vrindavan are living there, reading the Govinda Lilamrita, doing what they call madhukari. You like to be madhukari. Madhu means honey, kari means to make make honey. The bee goes from one flower to the next flower to the next flower. So the sadhus would go door to door with a begging bowl, and what people would give, here, that would be their meal. So austere way to live. Somebody said, you know, you're very much just flying around in airplanes. So the real sadhu who stays in Vrindavan does Madhukari. I say, yeah, where is sadhu who lives homeless in New York at the age of 70, where there's no Madhukari system. You can't just go to the door and say, you got any chapatis? It doesn't work like that. He was not concerned about what he would eat, where he would sleep, but only that he would be active in what he understood to be carrying out the quest, the desire, the order of his Guru Maharaj to share the dispensation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he had a real interest in doing that. This real interest in sharing that, it speaks, if you understand it properly, of an inner life. Krishna Shakti Vinay Nahi Tara Pravartam. You have to have Krishna Shakti to do this. That Shakti means bhava. To be successful in Sankirtan, in the dissemination. As I said the other night, that if words come from the heart, they'll enter the heart. If they come from the tongue, they'll just pass through the ears. And we can see, of course, he was very successful. He sat in Tompkins Square Park and had a little drum that he found and chanted, and people surrounded. And gradually, then his literary contribution as an acharya increased as he got some students. They facilitated him. And he was very preoccupied with this idea of publishing, because again, as Guru Maharaj told him, if you get money, print books. So that was his main focus. Meanwhile, society kind of naturally formed around him, and he gave it some structure and some guidelines. Basically said the way it should run from a political or management perspective is, we'll have two rules. The members should love and trust one another. That's all. That's how Vrindavan is run. Love and trust. When you love, there's no need for rules. When there's rules, there's no love. If you love someone, you're living in the same room, and then there's a breakdown in the love, because you like to stay up late at night and listen to music, and he likes to get up early in the morning. And so suddenly it starts showing up that there are differences here, there are problems. So then you sit down, let's preserve the thing, let's make a list. Okay, I will not play the radio after 9 o'clock. Okay, and I won't get up before 7. And so you make rules and you put them on the wall, and the thing goes on in some way. But with love, a full face of love, full flow of love, then, as I said, that you have to take my heart for yours, I take my heart as my heart yours. We exchange hearts. I become busy about your heart, you become busy about my heart. So where there's love, there's no rules. Where there are rules, there's no love. Look at the religious spectrum, from Varnashram, the moral life, to the Vrindavan. And the moral life, the Varnashram, has hundreds of thousands of rules. In his introduction to Brihat Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami says, I pray to Krishna, to you, Bhagavan, free me from all these rules, religious rules of Varnashram Dharma. It's such a troublesome thing. As I said last night, it's troublesome from beginning to end. All these rules, how to get things, and you're not a thing, and you can't keep them, you have to get them, and so on and so forth. Free me from that. All the rules. And if you don't follow the rules perfectly, you won't get the result. On the other side, in love, even done imperfectly. And how can you do love imperfectly? In love has the power. This is what bhakti is. The Swarup Shakti of Krishna is love power. Love has the power to harmonize all contradictions. Love turns faults into ornaments. It is said, mother named her blind son Padmalochan, lotus eyes. you know, blind eyes, they don't look so as they do. People wear sunglasses who are blind, and so forth. And so the child was born, and people said, "Oh, but he's blind." Mother looked and said, "I see only lotus eyes." And so love has this capacity to turn faults into ornaments. The love life of Krishna in Vrindavan, there can be no wrong. There can be no mistake. Bhavagrahi Janardana, this is Krishna. We should want to know how to do it right within bhakti, how to make the offering right, so on and so forth. But the spirit behind it is all important, because even if you do all that right, but the spirit is wrong, then what? But if the spirit is right, I'll tell you a story. Once when Krishna and Balaram were established Prabhupada's deities in Vrindavan, I was there for the occasion. I was fortunate to be part of making that happen for Prabhupada. And so that at night for a week, all these big dignitaries from India were coming to see the white people worshiping Krishna in this big temple and so forth from America. And all these dignitaries were visiting Prabhupada, so he'd walk them through and see the art. You see how envoys are acting, girls like Brahmins and so forth and so on. So I was on the altar, and two of the devotees who were working with me, serving under me, there's three altars, Gordon and I, and Krishna Balaram and Radha and Krishna. They had this arti, it was like synchronized, like choreographed. You were supposed to do it like, give a nod, everybody steps forward, lights the lamp, stands up, steps back, starts the offering like this. So they told you had to like visit and all that. So, they're on the stage, so to speak, and one of my godbrothers got out of step, the whole thing just went, and Prabhupada got back into his room and he said, who's doing that arti tonight? And then one of them says, that was Tripurari. I took sannyas a few days after this. So I was not a sannyasi, that was Tripurari and his brahmacharis. And Prabhupada said, oh, then it's okay. So he knew where our hearts were. He knew we had sacrificed for months and months and months to selling books to raise money to make the temple happen. So our whole focus, all the money we were collecting, we were living out of little bags like this, shoulder bags. We put our stuff in it. We moved to the next temple, emptied it out, and put books in it, and we'd go out and sell them to people. And all the money was in to Prabhupada for Vrindavan, to open the Krishna Balaram temple. And we were there, for the openings. We felt really connected to it. So we felt we can go up there on the altar, And so anyway, the point is that in bhakti, you can't do anything wrong in bhakti unless you go against bhakti. Of course, well, that's obvious. That's what we call aparadha. If you go against bhakti, that's the problem. If you have material desires, even in the context of your bhakti, anyway, that'll go away. It's troublesome for you. We know it'll go away. Just keep doing bhakti. It'll go away. Keep coming. Keep having sadhusanga. Listen to the talks. Keep coming to the festivals. Your senses will wear down after a while anyway. They don't work as well anyway. And then these ideas that you've been kind of flirting with for years, they start to come to the forefront, and you think, I'm going to do this once and for all. Something like that. It'll come like that in due course. This life, next life, and so on. But the point is what? In bhakti, difficult to do anything wrong unless you go against bhakti. That should be obvious. So, point being, from one end of the spectrum, in Varnashram, you have to do everything right. It's all rules oriented. If you do it all right, boom, you get a magical result. You get a son, a daughter. I did the ritual like this. I wanted this. I got it. And the other side, in the Vrindavan Leela, you can do no wrong. And in many respects, they're doing everything wrong. You can't talk to God like that. In Vrindavan, they're wrestling with Krishna and winning his friends and pinning him on the ground. And from the point of view of Vaikuntha, You can't deal with God like that. You're doing everything wrong. Rupa Goswami said, Sanatana Goswami met one lady in the Braj, one of the Braj stories, and she was cooking this khichdi. It's just throw everything in a pot, like that, and stir it up. And she was cooking like this, and she had this stick she was stirring with, and she used the stick, she brushed off of it, and then brush her teeth with the stick, and then put it in like this. And there were two young boys there, and she was cooking for them, and then and he was Sanatana Sosa. Those boys are very, very charming, and they ate the khichdi, and then they went off. So he followed them, and they went into a temple, and they went into the deities of Krishna and Balaram. The Krishna and Balaram are appearing every morning and taking khichdi at this lady's place. So he went back and told the lady, "You can't do it like that. You can't do it like that. Get a separate stick, and do all these things." She said, okay, Sadhu says I should do, okay. So then the boys show up, and they're waiting, and she comes like an hour late, and then she starts to cook, and they, "What are you doing? We're hungry." "Well, this Sadhu told me that you have to do all these things, and then Sanatana appears on the scene and sees what happens. He says, "No, baby, get your toothbrush back," something like that. So, with feeling, she had such feeling about it that Krishna and Balaram personally, she's meditating. I did something for Krishna. I love Krishna. And Krishna appears and starts taking it, right? So this is the idea of the Vrindavan Leela. You can do, so to speak, no wrong. And with us, it really comes out. And Prabhupada's campaign, canvassing, writing books, we're helping, facilitating, we developed a society to facilitate the application of the books, put them in practice and so forth. And he said the rules should be, everything should be run on the basis of love and trust. This is how Vrindavan runs, just by love and trust. There are no rules there. When he realized, well, these guys and gals are not quite like that yet, then he formed a governing body and he said, you all should meet for 3 days, and make some resolutions, and then that's it. And follow them for the rest of the year, something like that. It was very management light, if you will, very rule light, and we were all just there on the basis of love for Prabhupada. I mean, we were following his lifestyle, basically, which became our rules. He shaved his head, we shaved like that. I mean, he eats like this, we eat like this. Whatever he does, we want to do something like that. He's got something we want, so we just do what he does. How he does it, something like that. But I mean, we were independent people, most of us. I mean, hippies, and we were just free thinking and whatnot. Homeless ourselves, most of us, and we came under what would appear to be a lot of laws, and we were really just doing the way he did things. But it was just by our affection for him. I remember when I met the devotees first at the Woodstock Festival. I met the devotees, but I wasn't able to join them there. They were too hard to follow up on those people, sprawl of people. But when I met them again in Miami, one of the devotees, I asked the devotees, why do you shave your head? He said, Prabhupada does. And that's kind of a dumb answer in a way, like, okay. But I thought it was a great answer. I thought, wow, they like this. They love him. I like that. They love him. And this is how they show their love in a simple way. He does it like that. We want to follow him. Whatever he has, it must have something to do with the way he dresses and the way he conducts himself. So at least let's do the things that he does, and hopefully what he has will come inside of us. Imitation of a good thing is a good thing. Something like that. And this is really what sadhana bhakti is about. Sadhana bhakti is about imitating a good thing that is really arising out of deep feelings of ecstasy. He called his purports my emotional ecstasies. So we couldn't write the purports, but we could do some editing and get the books printed and this kind of thing. And in all respects, we were just kind of like doing things the way he did things, going through the motions. That's sadhana bhakti. Going through the motions. But the motions are not useless. They will give rise to feeling in due course. His motions were coming out of feeling. Our motions were in pursuit of the feeling. This is the difference between bhava bhakti and sadhana bhakti. The same movements are there. But the motivation is different. And sadhana bhakti is meant to beget bhava bhakti. So we followed him and we tried to develop this spirit of course, love and trust. He formed a society, but it was really kind of, in his idea, administration light, and he very much was intended to foster individual expression of bhakti. He wanted each center to be independent, and each leader, each center to have the facility to express their bhakti within certain parameters in their own way, to disseminate the ideas and so forth creatively, to decorate their deities, and so he wanted independently thoughtful persons, not a group of mindless people who can't think for themselves, are told what to think, what not to think, can't read any other book, this kind of thing. It wasn't like that. They open your mail. I won't give him that one. Not at all like that. He was a normal person in one of his respects, while being super transnormal at the same time. But, you know, when you imitate a good thing, sometimes it isn't always that good either. So there were naturally some problems with the institution as well. But the point I want to make here is that what he did along with forming an institution was to form a fund or a trust for publishing books. So as I began, his preoccupation was with the printing. He used to say that the first business of an acharya is to make a literary contribution. So this was his emphasis on the substance. The institution was one that gave some form to the substance, but it was meant to facilitate the pursuit of the substance and implementing that in our lives. He used to say, I mean, he wrote like 50, 60 books. I've written 50 books, and he said, so, you know, we're doing these things for a purpose. It's all in the books. Why? It may look crazy, but we have philosophy here too. I was instrumental in distributing lots of his books, and when I was young, one of my godbrothers wrote to Prabhupada about my success in circulating his books, and it was a particularly large number of books that I was able to circulate in a short period of time. And so he wrote to Prabhupada about it, and Prabhupada wrote back, very nice that he's doing this. And he said, then he wrote in his own handwriting, he said, please make sure he's always reading them also. I took that to heart. I thought, he's spending all this is what he wants. He used to say, I don't want to do any management. You do whatever management there is. There shouldn't be that much anyway. Jen, be happy. And then I'll be free just to write the books. So he formed a book trust, and he separated corporately the book trust from the organization. He had something in mind here. This is kind of while he wanted freedom of expression with regard to the institution and its temples, therefore he wanted diversity. He wanted to foster diversity. After all, bhakti, there's diversity of sentiments. So there's the sentiments of fraternal love, romantic love, for example. But it's the same philosophy. So the philosophy is one. This is Aved, non-dual. Advaigyan Tattva. It's a non-dualistic philosophy. Advaita Tattva. So it's a Bed-Abed equation. Unity and difference at the same time. Immanence and transcendence at the same time. So the Bed part is, or the Abed part is the philosophy. Philosophy is one, but it's a religio-philosophical ideology. So the religious expression of it is diverse. So there are sentiments, like I said, fraternal love, parental love, romantic love. These are expressions, religious expressions of the philosophy, but it's one philosophy, different expressions. So he wanted to create a society that fostered individual expression arising out of a singular philosophy that gave rise to such different possibility of different sentiments of love for Krishna. And so he had these two sides. This is just a Chinta Veda Veda kind of formula in real time, so to speak. He had a book trust and he had an institution. He used to say that the institution was my body. Sometimes they say that. He's called his group. It became referred to by an acronym. It's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. They used to call it ISKCON. And so ISKCON is my body, he used to say. We hear that sometimes. And I would argue that the book trust was his soul. You're not the body. So I say that only because we have a different institution here. But don't think that the soul of Prabhupada is not present here. It can appear in different bodies. And you say, well, that's okay, but that's material bodies. Spiritual bodies are eternal. Are you saying that Prabhupada's body as an institution is dead? No, it can't be dead. It's a spiritual body. Just say, that's fine too. You can think like that if you like. That's fine too. But as we know, they're different. Krishna has, in spiritual life, there can be different bodies. In Vaikuntha, for example, where Dasya Bhakti is prominent, servitude, the servants take different forms according to the service that's necessary at any given moment. Taking the form of a flower, taking the form of a cow in Dasya Bhakti to serve Narayan in any given instance. So there can be different spiritual bodies in our tradition. Indeed, we're cultivating Gaur Lila Swarup, a Krishna Lila Swarup. We have a Sadhaka Deha also, that's to be spiritualized, and so on and so forth. So there, around him as a person, there's room for different expressions of what he was about. Myself, and some of us here, my godbrother Brahma is present. We, and Radha Sundari also, Sakala Pujapada Sridhar Maharaj, we, who's affected obviously by Prabhupada's campaign widely and came in touch with her Guru Maharaj through that campaign. Brahma and I were disciples of Prabhupada, or our disciples of Prabhupada, and we came in touch with Sridhar Maharaj after his disappearance. So we were very fortunate. We were thought by some to be, to not like Prabhupada anymore because we were with Sridhar Maharaj. But of course, I was massaging Prabhupada's feet when he was asked that, and he was ill at the time, that after your departure, is there anyone we could get advice from? He said that he was asked really about how we will perform the funeral rites when you pass, because we don't know anything about that. You've written about that. So he said, Narayan Maharaj in Mathura, he knows that. You can call in for that. And then my godbrother Tamal Krishna said that Prabhupada, after you pass away, is there anyone else we can consult with? And he said, for philosophy, my godbrother, Srila Prabhupada. So I thought, that just kind of like went in. Now that went in me. And opportunity for necessity of philosophical inquiry did rise because I started to see some difference between the books and the expressions that I thought were not in concert with the book, with philosophy. So I had the good fortune, Brahma had the good fortune to get the guidance of Puja Srila Maharaj after our Guru Maharaj Prabhupada passed away. We were thought at the time by some to how could we leave Prabhupada? I thought, this is amazing, because when I first came in touch with the printed word of Srila Maharaj's talks, I thought, no one can affect me like this. There's only one person that's ever affected me like this, and that's Prabhupada. So he's present, the principle of Guru is present here. I'm being affected in the same way. And so I said, I think then I thought, and for philosophy, on the Sabdi's feet, I got to be our Srila Maharaj of Navadvip. In those days when Prabhupada was passing, we used to have kirtan for him 24 hours a day. So I had a shift between 1 and 3 in the morning. I was the only one, and then Prabhupada's assistant was there. 1 and 3 in the morning was in Vrindavan, I would chant. So I would sit and chant, and I would chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. The Kartals, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because this was a melody that Prabhupada used to sing, the one that he introduced, and he didn't introduce very many. And there are many ways, of course, to sing and express, and a lot of different melodies and so forth, but he was a little cautious about that we would not be turned into a musical affair. He wanted it to be a spiritual affair. It's even said that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, well, I'll give you a nice example. When Bhaktisiddhanta was passing from the world, he asked that the song Sri Manjari would be sung. So Tirtha Maharaj, who was the manager of the mission, pushed forward Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, who was a kirtanier and had a very sweet voice, and he began to sing Sri Manjari Pada Semo Sampada. And Saraswati Thakur stopped and said, no, I don't want to hear the sweet voice. I want to hear a voice with some substance. And the cracked, he called on the cracked voice of Pujapad Srila Maharaj to sing Sri Manjari Pada. And everybody looked. Puri Maharaj looked at him, and Puri Maharaj made him his Siksha Guru for the rest of his life. How he responded to that shows the purity of Puri Maharaj. He didn't think, how come that guy got to sing, not me? Nothing like that. He thought, Guru Maharaj thinks his voice has more substance. His voice has more substance. I want his association. I showed his purity. You understand? We had the good fortune to have his company also. After Prabhupada left, we met him at Sridhar Maharaj's mouth, where he himself came to celebrate the appearance day of Sridhar Maharaj, which is a day in the history of Prabhupada's Leela also that's significant for his mission, because in India, when he first took his students back to India, and he was in West Bengal, he said, today we will learn how to worship the Guru on his birthday. And what did he do? He took them to Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math in Nadia. And it was the day of Sridhar Maharaj's appearance, and they were celebrating it there. And there, at the end of the kirtan, Kinchana Krishnadas Babaji, who was a famous disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta, also famous for his kirtan, was chanting. And at the end of this chanting, he sang, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, which is how they affectionately refer to their guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And when Prabhupada's disciples heard that, because they used to call him Prabhupada, they said, can we chant like that too? Jai Prabhupada. And the kirtan came from the Chaitanya Saraswati Math. He said, yeah, okay. It became instituted this way. So when I was chanting for Prabhupada in 1 and 3 in the morning, I was chanting, and I didn't want to make it any kind of a musical thing. Prabhupada gave this melody, it's got to be spiritual, and I just want to chant and please him. And my thought was, Prabhupada, you're leaving from the world. I want to be connected to the succession here. I want to be connected to the Guru Parampara, one after another, means the succession. I want that. That's what I want. Because without that, I'm rudderless. I'm in an ocean without any rudder. Mm, mm. And I'm chanting like that and thinking, and Prabhupada opened his eyes, looked up and turned to his secretary, because I was sitting at his feet, said, who is that chanting? He said, oh, that's Srila. And Prabhupada looked at me and nodded like this. And I feel like, when I met Srila Maharaj, that came in my mind. Ah, Prabhupada blessed me. I'm connected to the Guru Parampara in a substantial way, in the form of his godbrother, whom he recommended when I was massaging his feet. He would go for philosophy, you can go to him. And there was a need. We went, we heard, we were benefited. And people thought, what? You're giving up Prabhupada. No, none of that. Prabhupada and Sridhar Maharaj were very intimately associated. And Prabhupada had love for Sridhar Maharaj. And Sridhar Maharaj had love for Prabhupada. We had love for Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had love for us. But that was something different. We were his students. He was our teacher. What I witnessed is that Sridhar Maharaj had love for Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had love for Sridhar Maharaj in ways that we should have love for one another. And that it was deep and significant. The measure and the depth of Sridhar Maharaj's appreciation for Prabhupada exceeded my own in depth of understanding the significance of his contribution, his purpose, his inner life, and so forth. So I have in common with some of my godbrothers the fact that we are all disciples of Prabhupada. We know him as our students. But I have the benefit, some of us have the benefit of knowing also something about Prabhupada's love for one of his godbrothers, who he referred to as his Siksha Guru, instructing Guru. We lived with him for some 6 years or so in Calcutta. They wrote their Gita commentaries together. This was a huge advantage to see my Guru Maharaj from another angle of vision and another loving and affectionate angle of vision. It was very edifying. Arguably, those of us who had that good fortune got to see something more about Prabhupada, not something less. And Pujapada Sridhar Maharaj, when I asked, what service can I do? He said, you know everything. Swami Maharaj Prabhupada has told you everything. Go and start a mission. And I'll be in the background. That's my nature. And so if you have any question, you can come and I'll be in the background here. And if you want to come to the monk, of course, this is the monastery, you can always come. Very affectionate, like an uncle. He told us, your Guru Maharaj told you to stop thinking and so that he could put things in your heart. My services tell you to think about all those things in its absence. What is the depth of that? What were the implications of that? And now you have to grow and live and have to apply that and so forth. This is how myself came to start writing books and following the legacy of my Guru Maharaj and charges and so forth. But a good fortune of their association, Prabhupada and Sridhar Maharaj, I've been able to think a little bit spiritually. So we're very fortunate to know something about the reality here. We're in a different group, if you will, but the soul of Prabhupada is very present here. His heart is beating here very much. And along with the heart of Pujapada Sridhar Maharaj, whose association has been very helpful on people influenced by both of them, were very different. Prabhupada was very outgoing. Sridhar Maharaj was very introverted. Tended to stay in smaller circles. Prabhupada had a huge circle of acquaintances, friends, community, and so forth. Prabhupada was very preoccupied with outreach. Pujapada Sridhar Maharaj was very preoccupied with thinking about a few verses forever, something like that. What they might mean, the implications, and so forth. And so this is the day of his Prabhupada's appearance. It's always, of course, wonderful for us that he appeared on the day of the Nandotsava. His, I should go back to it in brief, his literary contribution is is extraordinary. It's really quite extraordinary, given the fact that also that he wrote it while traveling around the world, dozen world tours, and managing a group that couldn't just love and trust. He had like 6 volumes like this big, each one, hundreds of pages of just letters, correspondence. This was he did on the side, and 30 volumes or so of Bhagavatam commentaries, Gita commentary, his summary of the Bhakti-yoga summary to Sindhu, Chaitanya Charitamrita commentary, so many. It's a big, big contribution, and the unity that is desirable amongst Gaudiyas, should be pointed out, really has the only prospect for such unity is the philosophy, is the books. This is, again, as I said, the unifying principle out of which a variety of sentiments and ways of serving can arise that do not compromise the unity. When the ways of serving compromise the unity, when they go outside the parameters of the Siddhanta, this becomes a problem. So if you want unity, it's not just like, oh, let's have a reunion. Many of us, probably here, there, and everywhere now. Many of them are not really engaged that well and so forth. They have different ideas about how to get together and unify and make it all back like 1972. And don't make it like 1972. You were 20 years old now. You're 60 now. Why don't you do probably the service of a 60-year-old person? Don't you have any wisdom after all these years? You have to act like a 23-year-old problem. Prabhupada wanted to say, well, what do you think? I don't know, Prabhupada. What do you want me to think? That was okay in the beginning, you know. But he expected, Prabhupada once said, my difficulty is that my grandchildren are coming, but my children are not coming. He meant, I'm 70 plus, 80 years old, and 20-year-olds are coming, but nobody who's like 50 or 60 is coming. We've got a brain, and thought, you know, some experience in the world. And I'm in this world and I need some experience, what it's like. How do you talk to the, you know, to share that? We need to share our maturity, those of us in the position I'm talking about, with Prabhupada and say, I don't know about that, Prabhupada. Really? I don't think that might not be a good idea, relatively speaking. Of course, if you stay, I'll do, but really, why not? Okay, maybe that's not a good idea. That's the kind of input he wanted. Guru Maharaj, I'll do whatever you want. But I think if we do that, it'll be a disaster. I just want to let you know. Really? Okay. And why is that? Because there's distance. All right, fine. We'll do it like that then. Makes sense. You know, this is how he wanted that kind of input. With regard to, for example, dissemination, which is full of relativity. You can do it like this, you can do it like that, you can try this way or another way, open a temple here, or open one there, why don't we have one in Pembroke, we do it, there's all kinds of ideas, and how we might develop it, and do one in Portland, and so on. Santa Cruz, San Diego, Los Angeles, coming from different parts here. So there's so much relativity to that, and room for input. And with regard to philosophy too, verses can be applied in different ways. So within the context of the philosophy to respond to him. I mean, I tell you, it's really nice as a teacher, but when a student asks a question, I think that's a good question. They studied the philosophy, they thought about it, they wondered about that point. It's like energizing. So to be able to say, you said this over here, and you said this over here, and I'm trying to harmonize that, instead of saying, well, both are right, and we don't think about it. Jive, because if we think about it, well, we're just contradicting the group, and like, okay, I did want to be independently thoughtful, in the context of spiritual life, and so we need to share, some of us, this age, if you will, our experience and act like adults in 2015, rather than we were as 20-year-old kids and try to reinvent, I don't have a lot of taste for it. It's just the nostalgia. I mean, it's good. I mean, I like it. To to a point, but there has to be some. He had books. What about the philosophy? What about the teaching? What about the idea that the guru is one, appearing in a multitude of forms? As he himself said, just custom made for us. We think, yes, Krishna's here for me. My guru is best for me. It should be not my guru is best for everybody. I'll beat you over the head with that. And your guru, oh, what's your name? So and so's asked. Oh, Jai. And who's your guru? Oh, sorry. I can't honor that. Faith is supposed to be a deity, not the doormat where we wipe our feet. Our faith has arisen. We should honor that. Of course, we want to see if the faith is in concert with the teaching, with the Siddhanta, if it's rising out of the modes of nature. But that's another thing. So, on days like this, you think, Prabhupada, he brought us all here, wherever we are. There's little meetings like this going on everywhere. It would be nice if we were all together. And I always say to you, the only reason that we're not, the differences lie only in understanding books, teachings. This is the unifying principle. Siddhanta is the ground on which the dance is performed. It's the canvas on which the art of loving expression for Krishna is drawn. That's why I'm always talking about Siddhanta. That's why I'm writing books and I have thousands of tapes and so forth. And you have to listen to that. This is the unifying principle. In the context of that, there can be, as I said, so much variety that it won't compromise the unity. This is the idea. We have unity in diversity. We have Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj in our life and Prabhupada. And as I said, that's a plus, I would think. That's Prabhupada plus position. So everybody doesn't have to do that. But that variety is well grounded in the Siddhanta. Opposition to that is a problem because that opposition is not well grounded in understanding Siddhanta, the tattva about Guru, for example, and its possibility of being a multiplicity. After all, Chaitanya Charitamrita begins with one day Gurun, and Gurun is in the plural. The plural is used in Sanskrit for deference and so forth, but he's not using it in that way only. He's actually saying there's a plurality of gurus. In Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the possibility of plurality. One initiating guru, but other instructing gurus, and so forth. So something about Guru Tattva comes to mind on this occasion, auspicious occasion. And then we follow such discussion with the Arti. We perform Arti, Prabhupada, Kirtan, and are there some flowers? And then that'll be followed by the Arti to the deities, and then have the big Prasad, Prabhupada's secret weapon. You don't have to think. There. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Prabhupada Mahamutsvati ki jai, Nandotsi ki jai, Guru Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande. Guru Maharaj ki jai. context of the article for Prabhupada. That's called conflict. There's a nice story about that. When Prabhupada was in, I think, Japan, and it was the day of his appearance, and the boys were gathering, and they asked Prabhupada, how would you do this? There should be food conflict. So they said, okay. And so they made this kind of a rice. He said, no, it means flowers. So everyone get a chance to come and offer flower with and you are one person, and so you come and Kirtan, who's the Kirtan leader here? Yeah? Okay, I will sing first. We'll sing this one afterwards. Please come and say it. Somebody may not know the song. Samsara-davo manavira-bhuta pranaya-paru nakanavana Audarya Raptasya kalana Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda.
Well, I go there. On this side would be nice. Usually we put this out there, right?
You guys like outside or in the temple room?
Outside. Outside.
Okay.
Now what, Papa? Oh, now what are we doing? No, it's not a house, that's fine.
I know.
I hope they do escape one of these days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're rough.
Good singing, you know. That's a little new patch on it.
Oh, really? I bald spot?
No, this thing. That's not bald. No.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, it came from a bald spot.
Oh, well, you character.
Well, thank you very much. Oh, thanks. All right, great.
It's a great idea. No. And then do what? And then what, when I go? Yeah, I know, and then we'll cancel? Or, you don't want to do? It's up to you. What time, well, when are we going? It's too far to drive.
It's 4 hours.
No, we're gonna order like tomorrow.
Tomorrow we gotta go take some good things.
Cause I just signed it. That's right, there, cross college to go in.
I wanna say 7 hours.
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, it would be hate to cancel on this guy at the last minute, but it's like. Yeah, I mean, the only reason why, what? So,
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that.
G-Bond. You said G-Bond, I was like, what's G-Bond?
No, at least nothing has to change.
Yeah.
The whole point.
Fascinated.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just don't want to go straight to stuff.
You can see all that.
Yeah.
Because they're doing it.
Just temples everywhere.
I know
there's one.
You guys, I'm so down. I just think it's timing of the whole month. I'm totally good with that.
Yeah, probably. Right. What should we do with that? So I wait for the. Doesn't have a dietary. Okay. It said take a bite.
Okay. Yeah.